So welcome over to church, 7th and 8th graders. It's my privilege to introduce to you Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers. He's known around the world as the dynamic deacon, and you'll see why he gets that name here in a little bit. But he is one of the most sought-after speakers in the church today. So he travels across the United States and around the world, speaking at conferences, workshops, retreats, parish missions, and high schools. So really, he in short, he speaks to anyone who desires to know Jesus intimately and enjoy a deeper personal relationship with him. So let's welcome Deacon Harold and give him our very best attention this morning.
All right. Well, it's great to be with you. How many of you have seen me before? Whoa, I've never been here before. So how is it that you've seen me? Chosen. Maybe I'll share how I got on that program after the talk here. So what I want to talk about today is the pursuit of happiness. And I'm going to propose to you that you cannot really have true happiness until you first have joy in your life. So happiness is something that's on the surface. Joy, that's something that comes from deep within yourself. Right? And so you can't really have a life of happiness without joy. Because if you try to have happiness without joy, then what are you basing that happiness on? Like, what things make you happy? What things make you happy? Soccer. Excellent. Very good. So sports? Board games and video games? All right. Friends and family. Excellent. Hockey. Excellent. The 8th graders got nothing to say, huh? All right, and all those things are wonderful. All those things are wonderful. But if you base those just on they make you happy because how they make you feel, you really can't base a lifetime of joy on something like that. Right? So, for example, you guys remember Mother Teresa? You remember who she is? St. Teresa of Calcutta? So she worked with the poorest of the poor. I mean, I saw a documentary on her once where this news crew was following her around, and they showed her getting up in the morning, and the nuns would do an hour of adoration, and they would have mass, then a very simple breakfast, and then boom, out onto the streets. And you see hundreds of people walking up and down the streets of Calcutta in India, and on the side of the road like garbage were people with leprosy and pleurisy and AIDS and all other kinds of diseases. And there's Mother Teresa and her nuns picking up these people, bringing them back to the hospice, because these people are going to die. I mean, some of the nuns were nurses, but they're not miracle workers. I mean, these people are going to die. But at least they don't have to die in their own urine. They don't have to die alone or afraid. They're going to die knowing that somebody loved them. They're going to experience the love of God even in those few moments that they're clinging on to life before they go to truly meet God. That's incredible work that she was doing. But there were many times that Mother Teresa felt empty. She felt abandoned by God. She felt alone. She didn't feel God's presence while she was doing that work. So, in other words, she wasn't happy a lot of the times, but she was joyful. See, now we're getting to the heart of what I'm going to try to talk to you about today. So, happiness doesn't mean that you have joy, but you have to have true joy in order to be happy. So, even though she experienced what's called the dark night of the soul, you're doing this work. She's doing incredible work. She got a Nobel Peace Prize. She attracted the attention of the entire world. And yet, she felt empty, and sometimes she felt abandoned by God. Now, why do you think she felt that way? Why do you think God allowed her to feel that sense, even though she was doing amazing work, life-changing work? Why was she allowed to feel that feeling of abandonment or emptiness or like God wasn't with her. Why do you think she felt that? Yeah, 8th graders still have crickets, okay? Yes. The devil trying to persuade her? Mm-mm. That's a good answer, but no, I don't think that's what's going on. Anybody? Okay. How do you think the people that she was serving felt? You think they felt lonely? You think they felt abandoned? You think they felt loved by God? Those people on the streets? No. People would walk by them and just ignore them, like treat it like literally they were garbage. They wouldn't even look at them. So Mother Teresa, I believe, was allowed to experience what the people she was serving experienced. So God allowed her to enter into the experience of the people she was serving. She was allowed to feel how they felt. And I think that allowed her to serve them better because she was entering into their experience, right? A lot of times, that's what we need to do, to enter into people's experience in order to understand them better. Like, for example, I was speaking at a conference in Chicago, 5,000 middle schoolers there. You've heard of Seek? Have you heard of the Seek conference? No? Seek is like a huge event for college-age students. This was like an event like Seek, except for middle schoolers. And there were 5,000 middle schoolers there. So I spoke, there was two of us speaking, myself and a speaker named Paul J. Kim. So I spoke first, and then Paul was coming up, and Paul grabbed me and said, hey, after I'm finished, let's meet in the lobby of the hotel, and let's grab some dinner. I'm like, cool. And so I was dressed in a suit and a tie, and I had my crucifix and miraculous medal on, you know, and I walked to the elevator, and I got to the elevator, and the elevator door opened, and there was a little white lady in there. And she looked very nice, so I didn't say anything. I just smiled and like, hello, like I nodded my head, and her eyes got really big like this. She backed up to the back of the elevator and grabbed her purse like that. And I said, oh, she's scared. I said, okay. So I got into the elevator. I turned around. I didn't look at her or anything. I just turned around. I stood right in front of the doors. The elevator doors closed, boop, right in front of me. I pushed my floor. The doors opened. I got off the elevator. Now, why was she afraid of me? Now, I was a cop for 23 years, so I've investigated sexual assaults. So I understand that she might be experiencing post-traumatic stress syndrome because of something that happened to her. I get that. But why do you think she reacted that way? Did I do anything to make her think I was going to hurt her? Again, she might be experiencing some trauma. I get that. But why did she grab her purse? See, here's the thing. When you don't see someone the way God sees them, then things like that happen. And that hurt. Because she didn't see me, she saw a big black guy. And it hurts when people don't see you that way. Like, what she didn't see was like, yeah, I'm big, but I'm a teddy bear. I'm a teddy bear, man. But she didn't know that. She didn't know that I'm an immigrant to this country and the first person in my family ever to go to college. She didn't know that I wrote 6 books and I deaconed for the Pope. She didn't know all that. All she saw was this big, scary guy get to the elevator. So that didn't make me happy at all. But I was still filled with joy because I know who I am in the eyes of God. And that's what we need to do, start seeing each other the way God sees us. So let's talk about what joy actually is. So anybody know you St. Paul, right? You heard of St. Paul? He wrote most of the New Testament. In his letter to the Romans, he says this: those who live according to the flesh, and the word he uses there in Greek means not flesh on the bone, but like earthly things, worldly things, like possessions, right? So those who live according to the flesh, according to the things of the world, the thinking of the world, set their minds on the things of the world. Those who live according to the Spirit, to the mind and the heart of God, live according to the Spirit. That makes sense. Here's the key. To set the mind on the flesh is death. So the word that's used there is thanatos in Greek. In fact, you ever see that movie, the Marvel movie, the guy named Thanos? The guy that snaps his finger and everything's dead? That's where his name comes from. The Greek word is thanatos, which means death. But it doesn't mean just physical death. It means to cut yourself off from God's life. Right? So death, the way it's used here, means that when you focus on the things of the world, on worldly things, on earthly things, where all the things, the material possessions become the heart and the center of your life, you cut yourself off from God. That's what St. Paul is saying. But to set the mind on the Spirit, on the things of God, is life and peace. And that's where your joy comes from. When you live according to the ways and the thinking of God, you live according to the Spirit, that is where you get the life and peace, and that's where your joy comes from. So joy comes from this intimate, personal, loving, and life-giving communion with God. That's what generates your joy. And so that's something that comes from the inside that radiates outward. So when people see us, they need to see the joy of the Lord. Not happiness, but joy. Happiness is just on the extra. For example, if you it's your birthday, and they give you a big old cake, and you're like happy because you love chocolate cake, and they take the cake from you. Whoa, what just happened? Your happiness is gone, right? That's the problem with focusing on the things of the world. Once those things are gone, our happiness is gone. But if you have joy from a deep, loving relationship with God, they could take all the things of the world away, but you still have joy. And you still have happiness, because nothing in this world will ever give you the joy that God can give you. That's the point. Now, Jesus, we know, before he started his public ministry, we see this in Luke chapter 4, that he was in the desert, was being tempted by Satan, right? Because the devil didn't exactly know who he was, so he had to test, is this the one that's supposed to be the Savior? So he's trying to test him. And you remember, there's three things that the devil tests Jesus on. He says, if you are the Son of God, command these stones to become bread. So Satan tries to satisfy our hunger and thirst for truth, goodness, and beauty for things that don't satisfy. So sometimes in our lives we have times of anger with someone that we love, or we're struggling with different things going on, like maybe the parents at home. I remember, I grew up with a single mom. When we immigrated to the United States, my dad didn't come with us. And when he finally did decide to join us over a year later, he was just not a very nice person. He drank a lot. And if you come from a house where alcohol is an issue, I don't even have to tell you of the hurtful and embarrassing moments that come from living in a house like that. My father never went to church. He was not a person of faith at all. Never saw my father in church growing up at all, ever. Every time he used God's name was as a curse. And my parents eventually got divorced. So when my dad left, I helped my mom take care of the family. So I'm the oldest. And it was okay. I love my mom. And I was okay helping her with my brothers and my sister. I was all right. And I had to learn a lot of responsibility at 12 and 13. But I'm grateful for that experience now, because that's really helped me and all the things that I'm doing today. But it was hard going through things like that. And sometimes you're tempted to think that God doesn't love you. Why would God allow this to happen? God really doesn't love me. That's not true. That is not true at all. God loves you more than you can ever imagine. God loves you, each one of you, as if you were the only person that has ever been born. If you were the only person God ever created, he would have died for you. He would have done that for you. That's how much he loves you. That's not an act of, well, it is an act of torture and suffering, but ultimately it's an act of love. It's an act of love. I love you so much that I'm willing to give my life for you. Parents aren't perfect, but God's love is perfect. God will never, ever leave you or abandon you. That's how much he loves you. Never. After this experience with my dad, I was a monk. So when I joined the monastery, my father was mad. He was so upset. I'm the first person in my family ever to go to college. And I get an academic scholarship to Notre Dame. So now he expects me, after going to a school like that and doing really well, he expected me to go on Wall Street and make $1 million so he can brag to all his friends about what his Notre Dame son is doing. Instead, I felt God was calling me to monastic life. So I joined the Benedictines. And so out of respect, I went to his apartment to explain to him what I thought I'd be doing with the rest of my life. Our conversation went something like this. You're going to do what? You're the first person in our family ever to go to college. You go to he said Notre Dame. You said Notre Dame. You get an economics and business degree. And now you're going to waste your life living with a bunch of men? What's wrong with you? What am I supposed to tell my friends? I told him what he could tell his friends. And then I didn't speak to him for 18 years. As far as I was concerned, on that day, he died. In my heart, he was dead. I hated my father. I don't like saying that, but it's true. When my sister got married a number of years later, he didn't show up. I walked my sister down the aisle. When my kids were little, they were asking for their grandfather. They went to my wife, "Where's our grandfather?" And she had to explain that her father died when she was 18, had cancer. She goes, "Your daddy didn't even meet my daddy." Then they came to me, "Where's our grandfather?" And I looked my kids in the face and told them, "He's dead." So I get it. I totally get it. That you feel that God doesn't love you sometimes. But nothing could be further from the truth. It doesn't matter how you feel, because sometimes you go through experiences so that God could use that so you could become a better person. It's painful to go through. Just like that, it's painful to go through, but we know that that's not the end, is it? Did he just die on the cross and that's it? What happened after? Maybe we have to have another talk first, right, before this one. Now, what happened? Is that the end, him dying on the cross? What happened after that? He rose from the dead. If that's the end, then we're all wasting our time. That is our hope. That gives us security that is not the end. So no matter what we're going through, how difficult it is, even though we're not happy, we have the joy of knowing that God's love will never abandon us, ever. And that's what now, I'm not going to tell the whole story about my dad, but it had a very good ending. So when my dad died, I was actually at his bedside praying the Chaplet of Divine Mercy when he died. So it was a long story about how that all happened. But God brought it back all the way around. Like, my dad completely changed his life when he finally encountered Jesus at 74 years old. My father didn't care anything about Jesus until he was 74. And that's when he started falling in love with Jesus. And everything in his life changed. He died at 82. And those years were the best years I ever had with my dad. So going through that stuff when we were younger was not happy. But I had a joy there because I knew that God still loved me. And the reason why I'm even explaining it like this to you, I travel 250,000 miles a year. I've been to 31 countries. I speak to thousands of young people. Like this Jack is Papua New Guinea. I did a youth rally with over 2,000 kids in Papua New Guinea. And everywhere I go, kids tell me they're not sure how much God loves them. They tell me that. Well, Deacon, we're not sure how much God really loves us. So that's why I'm sharing this with you. It's that knowledge and that assurance that God loves you that will give you the joy. No matter what is going on in your life, knowing that God wants you to share life with him. Intimate, personal, loving, and life-giving communion. That's going to last you your whole life. Because you may want to do sports, but when you get my age, you ain't going to be doing sports. The only thing I have now that I had when I was your age is my faith. That's going to last you your entire life, no matter what you're going to be doing. Your faith is going to last you, and you're going to have that relationship with God your entire life. And I'm telling you about these temptations because there are going to be times in your life where people or circumstances are going to tempt you and try to pull you away from a relationship with God. So one of these things that's going to tempt you are lies. They're going to try to lie to you. They're lying to you now. They're lying to you saying that boys can be girls and girls can be boys. That's a lie. They're trying to tell you a child in the womb is not a person, it's a blob of tissue. That's a lie. They're trying to tell you marriage is something else other than a man and a woman. That's a lie. They're trying to tell you that old people are worthless. If you're old and you're sick, you're a burn on your family. You're a burn on society. You're a burn on the healthcare system. We'll give you two choices. We'll kill you, euthanasia, or we'll give you medication to kill yourself, assisted suicide. That's what you are being told today. That's what you hear every day of your life out there in a world that's focusing on the things of the flesh, on worldly things. That's not us. Remember, we focus on the things of God, on the things of the Spirit that gives us life and peace, which is rooted in truth. Because Jesus says, what will set you free? You know that verse? The truth will set you free. Set you free to do what? That's the key. Set you free to do what? To become the person who God created you to be. To become the person who God created you to be. Because every single one of you exists for a reason. Everyone else that has ever lived in the history of the world does not have the mission that God gave to you, or to you, or to you. And only you. You were born at this time for a reason. You go to this school for a reason. God has a plan for you and only you. So it's going to be exciting to see over the years how that plan becomes fulfilled. And then I'm going to help you, walk you through a few things to help you think about that. So one of the things that's going to pull you away, the culture is going to have you hunger and thirst for things that aren't true. So we have to stay rooted in the beauty and truth of our faith. Second, the devil took him up to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them. And he said, all these I will give you if you fall down and worship me. So after the food thing didn't work, he said, okay, I'll tempt him with glory and possession. So look at the world. Look at all this stuff. All that I will give to you. All you have to do is fall down and worship me. What's that temptation? Money, popularity. Your age group, how many likes do I get on my posts? How many people follow me? How many? You post on all these social media things, and you think that shows how popular I am. God doesn't care about that stuff. What matters is how you see yourself, not what other people think about you. You're really going to let how many likes on a social media post determine your value and your worth? Really? Who cares? You know, I was on my radio show yesterday, and the producer was telling me about this trend. Maybe I didn't know about this till yesterday. Maybe you guys are familiar with this. Like when you post on social media, if you're taking pictures with your family, you cover your face. Have you heard about that? Have you heard about that? You take pictures of your family, you cover your face. I was like, well, like, what do you mean they cover their face? Like, why are they doing that? And I thought, oh, no, usual teenage thing. I'm embarrassed to be with my parents. Drop me off a block away from school so the other kids don't see me, you dropping me off to school. That kind of thing. But then someone who heard the program yesterday sent an email in. They said, no, that's not what's going on at all. What they're saying is, I don't want to be part of this family. And so they put their hand in front of their face. I'm like, wow, really? That's sad. Why would you do that? I don't want to be part of this. But that's our culture today. It's all about me. That's all this social media stuff. It's all about me. We worship the God of me, myself, and I. Our faith says is when you give yourself away in love is when you truly find yourself in God. So all the material stuff, how many cars, how big your house is, who cares? What matters is what kind of person you are on the inside. Because when God looks at you, he doesn't look at you through the lens of your possessions or what clothes you wear. God looks at your heart. He wants to see what kind of person you are on the inside. That's what matters. Not the outside, the inside. And that's how we need to start looking at people. We need to start looking at their hearts, not their possessions. Then finally, if you are the Son of God, throw yourself down. So remember there at the top of the temple, what's called the parapet of the temple, throw yourself off from here. And Satan quotes scripture to the word of God, Psalm 91. He will give angels charge of you, and on the hands that will bear you up lest you strike your foot against the stone. What arrogance. So Satan's trying to say that relying on our job, on all these things, that's going to make us safe and secure, not in our knowledge and love of God. Right? So those are the things that are going to happen in your life that are going to tempt you away. Now, I'm going to propose ways that we can stay in that loving relationship to keep that joy going. So the first is, I'm thinking of 3 groups of people that will help you to discover your purpose and your joy in life. Three groups of people. What do you think one of those groups of people are? Parents. Okay, very good. That's one group I'm thinking of. Parents. Right? Again, parents aren't perfect, but they will help you discover. For example, my mom, when we were small, I remember my mom kneeling down behind me and my brother. So my brother, I was kneeling, my brother was kneeling, my other brother and sister were too small. And then my mom would say, Our Father. And we repeat, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be that. We learn the Our Father, Hail Mary, Glory be to the Father, angel of God. Every night. I still remember that. My mom kneeling us down to pray. My mom took us to Mass every Sunday. Even if she was working overtime, she would come home, make sure that we got to Mass. Right? So my mom had a very simple faith. But it was not just what she did, but not just what she said, but her example. She was a cardiac care nurse. She worked on the graveyard shift. She worked 11 at night till 7 in the morning. And many, many times, she went to work with holes in her shoes and runs in her stockings because we needed stuff. And she sacrificed and worked all those hours so we could go to a school like this. For her, Catholic education was very, very important. And she sacrificed. So I've learned the meaning of sacrifice, and I learned the meaning of being a gift to others from my mom. Right? So parents, even though they're not perfect, they're still on that list. Outstanding. Who else? Parents. Teachers, I'll save them for last. That's the other group. One more. Gwen? What? Oh, friends. Oh, no. Forget friends. No, they're not on that list at all. Priests. Priests, deacons, right? Because they're supposed to be examples and witnesses of God's love, so they can help you. But the third one I want to talk about, teachers. Now, how important are teachers in your life? Now, for me, like I said, I went to Catholic school, and an encounter with a teacher changed everything for me. Because, when I was in 7th and 8th grade, I was somewhat of a little bit of a troublemaker at school. Why? Because they had no idea what was going on in my house. All they know is I showed up to school, and Harold would be in trouble again because I was like kind of acting out and stuff. Because, again, they had no idea what was going on in my house. So that's all they saw was the kid that caused trouble. When I got to high school, and you'll be there next year, right? My very first exam, my very first grade in high school was history. The teacher was Mr. Frank Mullen. And Mr. Mullen handed out his exam papers. He would walk up and down the desks, and he would turn your paper over on your desk. And he'd then walk down the next aisle of desks and put your paper over on your desk. And he'd go up the next aisle. So he got to me. I'm nervous. I studied. So I'm like, okay, my first high school test, my first grade. I'm thinking this is going to set the tone for my high school, And he puts the paper, and he keeps going. And I went, B+. And I audibly said, yes! And I'll never forget this. Mr. Mullen stopped walking. And he backed up. And he looked at my little 14-year-old self in the face. He goes, and you're happy with that? And I'm thinking, yeah, B+ is pretty good. That's a good way to start. I'm okay with that, But I was so excited to go home and show my mom, Mommy, look, I studied, I got a B+. And then I told her what Mr. Mullen said. And she said, no, son, you don't understand. What he meant was, you could do better than that. And it was the first time that anyone other than my mother said, I can be more than my environment. Because we grew up single mom, week wake. Anybody familiar with New Jersey? Any adults here? Week wake section of Newark? That's not a place that you want. Vailsburg and Week Wake are the two places in Newark you don't want to be. We grew up in Week Wake. Gangs and stuff. But Mr. Munn said, you can do better. You can be better than your environment. And that changed something in me. I said, what if I did study a little bit harder? What if I did? And there were teachers at that school, at that Catholic school, that believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. And it was because of teachers like the ones you have here, your teachers, your administrators, that I am the person that I am today. In fact, I've written 6 books. In my first book, I specifically listed the names of my teachers in that book. Because I knew if it wasn't for them, I would not be here. Because the only reason they're teaching here is for the money. That's all they care about. Is those big fat paychecks they get every week. They're all laughing. Because they know that's not true. They don't make any money teaching here. You know why they're here? Because they love you. I love you. That's why I'm here. They're not paying me to be here. I'm here because I care about you guys. Because I wish someone would have told me this when I was in 7th and 8th grade. And it made all the difference in the world. My mom made sure there were other men in my life, because my father wasn't there, other men, like my wrestling coach, Mr. Frank DiPiano. He saw something in me as a 14-year-old freshman. He saw something in me. So after practice, and wrestling practices are grueling, he'd stay. He goes, can you stay another half an hour? And we work on a particular move, or we work on a particular skill. He saw something in me. So by the time I became a senior, I was undefeated my senior year in wrestling, ranked number 2 in the state of New Jersey, because of men like Mike DiPiano. You may not appreciate them now, but all these teachers in here can make a huge difference in your life. So parents, priests, deacons, and your teachers, they're here to help instill that joy, that love of God in your heart. Because what happens if you don't do that? If you don't have that love? For example, so many young people say that Mass is boring, right? You've heard that. Mass is boring. Why do you say that? Because you don't know why you're here. Why are you here? Because, we have to go because we go to Catholic school, and every Wednesday, Friday, whatever it is, we have to go to Mass, and we have to go on Sunday, and then you're saying to yourself, well, my friends' parents don't make them go. Why do we have to go? And what does any of this have to do with my life every day? How many of you thought that before? Honest. Just be honest. I mean, you're not going to get in trouble. Don't just do it because, I'll look bad. No, seriously, I'm being honest with you. Just be honest. How many of you, raise your hand. Thank you, which is most of you. Thank you for being honest. Thank you. But yet, in your heart of hearts, you want what Jesus is giving you here. The problem is this: when we teach you, right, we teach you things about Jesus. We teach you things about the Catholic faith. But what you can't teach is how to fall in love with somebody. So it just can't be head knowledge. It has to be heart knowledge. So what I try to do, I'm not going to do it today, but because that's not the foundation of this talk. But what I try to do when I talk about the Mass is, how do you connect what happens here to your everyday life? Why are you here? Why are we doing the things that we do here? And what does any of that have to do with you? That's the stuff. Because in your heart of hearts, look, for example, I'm not a big television watcher. I don't really watch. I didn't even watch the Super Bowl. I just don't like television. But during the pandemic, when I was home and I couldn't travel, I watched a little more TV than I would normally watch. And I'm flipping through the channels. I'm shocked how many shows there are about vampires and zombies. Right? I mean, I'm flipping through Dawn of the Dead, Waking Dead, Last of Us, all these different movies. And then the vampire stuff. Blade, and then Twilight, or Traffic Light, or Stoplight, whatever they call that, right? I'm thinking, why are there so many shows about vampires and zombies? And then I thought about it. What do vampires and zombies have in common? They're dead. But yet they're alive, right? So what's a vampire that's dead have to do to stay alive? Drink blood. What's a zombie that's dead have to do to stay alive? Eat flesh, eat brains. So what the culture's craving is flesh and blood. But because they don't know who's in that tabernacle, because they don't know what's happening at this altar at Mass, because there's a serious disconnect between what happens here and your life every day out there, we're trying to find flesh and blood in creatures that are dead, that can't give us anything except take our money. When for free, and why is it free? He already paid the price. You can come to the altar of God and receive the true flesh and blood of Jesus that will give you life forever. Vampires and zombies, make believe. What happens at this altar at every Mass is the really real. You will not get closer to God on this earth than when you receive him in the Eucharist. Body, blood, soul, divinity. The next time you'll be that close to God is when you're dead and you're standing before Jesus for the particular judgment. On earth, it's the Eucharist. That's real. Vampires and zombies are not. This is real. And what's God saying? I love you so much. I want to create my life in you. That's what the Eucharist is about. He loves you so much that he literally wants to give you his life. And that's what he's doing here. And that's what gives you your joy. Don't let anybody take that from you. Nobody. Let me put it to you like this. Some of you are athletes, right? Now, athletes have to go to practice. There are a lot of amazing reasons why you go to practice. What is the main reason why you go to practice? Again, there's lots of good reasons. What's the main reason? To get better. Wrong! Great reason, not the best reason for going to practice. Think about it like this. Who's the soccer player? Okay, got a bunch of soccer players. Great. I like soccer, although I still don't understand offsides. My daughter plays soccer. She was actually being looked at by the Oregon Olympic Development Team. She's really good. And so I still don't get offsides. But imagine you're in the game, right? You're playing soccer. You're in the game. Now, practice doesn't count. They don't keep score in practice. They keep score in the game. So you're in the game. The ball's coming to you. Do you have time to stop and think, here comes the ball. I must now blade my foot at a 45-degree angle. I must now kick the ball with such trajectory as to place it in front of my teammate or not too far or else it'll be offsides. Do you have time to think about that? No. Anybody play softball or baseball? Okay, imagine you're in the box. The ball's coming to you, 70 miles an hour. Do you have time to think, here comes the ball. I must now shift my weight to my back leg. I must now rotate my hips. I must now look at the ball and make eye contact. Do you have time to think about that? No. So what do you do in practice? Soccer. Okay, soccer practice starting. Do you kick the ball once and go home? How many times do you kick the ball in a practice during the week? Hundreds and hundreds of times per week. Baseball, softball. How many times okay, practice starting. Okay, go home. You swung the bat once. Is that how practice works? You do it, how many times do you swing the bat in practice? Hundreds of times, over and over. What skill in practice are you trying to develop? There's a name for it. Muscle memory. Muscle memory. The reason why you do those things over and over and over again, because you're training your body that when you're in the game, that you don't have to think, that your body reacts and responds to the situation it finds itself in. That's why you do those things over and over and over and over again. Muscle memory. Now, my young friends, Mass is practice. Because the game is not in here. The game is out there, outside the walls of this church, outside the walls of the school, where this culture is trying to destroy God's life in you. God is giving you life in the church, in the Eucharist, through your teachers, your parents. We talked about this. But the culture is trying to take that joy from you. It's trying to take God's life from you by lying to you to your face. So what does God provide us in practice, in the Mass? Word and sacrament. Word and sacrament. Over and over again. Why? We're building spiritual muscle memory. And God gives us everything we need in word and sacrament, over and over again. Because he prepares us that when we leave, practice, go out to the game, he gives us everything that we need to win. And I don't know about you, but I don't like losing. My very favorite match, my senior year, like I said, I was undefeated. I was ranked number 2 in the state of New Jersey. I was wrestling the number 5 ranked wrestler. And I still have the clip from the Newark Star-Ledger newspaper sports section. Said I was going to lose that match because the kid was bigger and stronger than me, which he was. Patterson East Side High School. It was an away match at his gym. And so after weigh-ins, we're warming up on the mat. His team is warming up off of the mat. Now, my team didn't do this, but there's some teams that when you pin somebody, you ever see those big metal clothespins? Like when you close a diaper with, like the big ones? They would put those on their sweatshirt. This guy had pins going all down his arm. All the people he pinned. And so they got up and started running laps around the mat. So he'd see me sitting there, he'd go like this. He'd run and he'd shake his arm. And the pins would go, chicka, 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 chicka. He'd do another lap. He'd see me sitting there, he'd shake that arm. And the pins, chicka, 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 clicking together. I'm like, okay, I ain't got time for that. And the gym is packed. Why? 2 top 5 wrestlers, both undefeated, going at each other. Gym was packed. So the match starts to get to our weight class. I run out there. Boo! Whole gym booing me. He runs out there. I said, I ain't got time for this. Ready? Wrestle. Bam, we're in it. So wrestling is 3 2-minute periods. At the end of the second period, I'm down by 1 point. But I know I can beat this kid. I gave him 1 point for an escape. I actually gave him that point. So it was 1-0. So I'm down by 1 point. I know I can beat it. Because any good athlete knows 10% of the sport is physical. What's the other 90%? Right here. So any wrestlers here? Anybody familiar with wrestling? Not the WWF fake stuff, like real, like Olympics. You familiar? Okay. So I'm in referee's position. Okay? I'm down. He's on top. Now, my typical move from referee's position, when the ref blows the whistle, I do what's called a stand-up. So I push back into my opponent. So I push my arms back, spring back into him. I'm blocking, peeling, creating space, cutting, and attacking. Because in wrestling, you never want to stop moving. You never want to stop moving. So I had a strategy. The ref blows the whistle the first time. I fire up to this position here, and I stopped moving on purpose. I knew it was going to happen. He chopped me down, and we rolled off the mat. So we go back to the center of the mat again. I look at Coach. Coach is like, Mr. DiPiano. This means pick it up. I'm like, down again. Ref blows the whistle. Ready? Wrestle. I back it, and I stopped. I stopped again on purpose. Same thing happened. Chopped me down. We rolled off the mat. I go back to the center. I look at Coach is like, I'm like, now, I've now wrestled this kid for 4 minutes and 20 seconds. What what does he think I'm going to do the third time the ref blows the whistle? The same move, right? So what does that tell me? As soon as the ref blows the whistle, he's going to immediately, without even thinking, go to a counter stand-up. So he thinks I'm going to push into it. So he's automatically going to do like this. That tells me where his center of gravity is. That tells me where his hips are. That tells me where his arm position is going to be. So as soon as the ref blows the whistle the third time, just like I knew, he went like this, and I did a crossover switch. I didn't come up at all. I did a crossover switch. I chopped his right arm through his crotch. I grabbed it with my left hand, and I threw a half Nelson around his neck, and I started cranking the half. Now, every time you crank a half Nelson, the more you crank, the tighter it gets. And I cranked that half, nice and slow, so he could feel every ounce of pain as I was turning him on his back. And right before I pinned him, I whispered in his ear, "Does your mother have a camera?" Boom, ref blows the whistle. I pinned him. The gym is dead silent. My teammates are cheering behind me. I get up, I go to shake his hand. He lunges, because the ref didn't hear what I said, but he heard what I said about the camera thing. He lunges at me. The ref jumps in between us. I'm like, yeah, huh? And I go back. Why? My attitude is when I walked on that mat, nobody beats me. Nobody beats me. And our attitude, we walk out of church after Mass on Sunday, nobody takes my faith from me. Nobody out there takes my Catholic faith from me. Not my so-called friends, not this so-called culture of woke, not this culture of death. They don't take my faith from me. They don't take the joy from me. They don't take God's life from me. That's our attitude, because we're warriors. All of us, ladies, you're warriors. I hope you know that, by the way. Do you know in the Bible it says you're warriors? Did you know that? Oh, Genesis chapter 2. It says, it's not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper fit for him. The word helper is actually a compound word in Hebrew, helpmate, azer kenegdo. Azer kenegdo. Whenever you see that word used in the Old Testament, it means someone who stands parallel or opposite to you, who helps, aids, assists, surrounds, protects, and defends in battle. God wanted to create a battle partner for the man. What's the battle going to be against? Evil, sin, death. They fight together because they're both warriors. My mom was the strongest person I have ever known. She was a warrior. Don't let this culture take that from you. You have to stay strong in your faith, because that's where your joy is going to come from. And let me end with this. What do you guys want to think you want to do when you get older? Like when you grow up? Like what do you, if you know? Some of you may know, some of you may have an idea. I mean, you're not locked into it now. I mean, you're only, 13? You could change your mind. But like, what do you think you want to do? Professional soccer player. In fact, you're probably too young to remember. When I was in high school, there was a guy at my high school named Tabare Ramos and Claudia Reina. So Tab was in my class, and he was on the U.S. national team, and he played in the Olympics. So my job, when he came back from Russia or Poland playing soccer, I was one of the tutors that helped get him caught up with his schoolwork. But he was and Claudia Reina, I taught him math. When I was a monk, I taught him algebra. Claudia Reina was also on the U.S. national team, played in the Olympics. So, very good aspiration.
I want to go into psychiatry.
Psychiatry. My wife's a psychologist. Excellent. Well, psychiatry, is medical. So psychiatry. Excellent. Very good. They have professional lacrosse? Oh, okay. I don't know if they did it. Okay. That's cool. Lacrosse is a great sport. Although they call too much. I notice when women play lacrosse, they call too much of the bumping and stuff. Why? They don't do that with the men. Don't you push each other? Come on now. Oh, you don't have the pads? You don't have that? That's why then. Oh, thank you because I was like, why every time they play, but you don't have I didn't realize that. Yeah, I learned something today. Thank you. I love learning things, so thank you. Anybody else know kind of what they want to do? Wow, you 8th graders are completely clueless, man. Wow, okay. All right, so yes. Software engineer. Very good. You got to like math. You like math? All right, here we go. Very good. Yes. A lawyer. You're going to hell. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. If you're going to be a lawyer, be a good lawyer. Be honest, right? Do your correct billable hours and all that kind of stuff. And okay, very good. So let's think. So let's use you, soccer. Would you go to a coach, right? You want to be like Tabare Ramos or Claudia Reynier or some of these other great soccer players. You want to be great. Would you go to a coach that wants to make you happy? So no, hold on. Let me finish, okay? Here's the coach that makes you happy. It's the coach of the culture out here. You go to coach. Coach, I want to be great. I want to play in the Olympics. Okay, well, guess what? You're already great. Here's your trophy for 10th place. Here, you want to be great? Look, just show up to practice whenever you want. Just eat whatever you want. Yeah, if you want to run a few laps, that's okay. Kick the ball around a few times. Just do it however you want. If it feels good, do it. Or would you go to a coach that wants to give you joy? This coach says, you want to be a great soccer player? Here's what you got to do. You got to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day. You have to run a couple miles and hit the weight room before school. Then you go to school all day. You have to keep your grades up. Then after school is practice 6 days a week. That means you can't do social media whenever you want. That means you can't hang out with your friends when you want. That means you can't play video games whenever you want. That means you can't eat whatever you want because we have to turn your body into a machine so it can function properly, so you can play soccer to the highest level. So in order to be great, you have to sacrifice some good things in order to be great. So given everything I just said, oh gosh, 4 o'clock in the morning, I can't eat whatever I want, 6 days a week, hours and hours and hours of sacrifice, not being able to hang out with my friend. So which one would you choose? Second option. So you would choose this one? The one that's more strict. Really? You wouldn't want to go with the coach that just tells you do whatever you want, do whatever you would go to the coach that says, if you want to be great, it takes discipline. That's what you would do? How many people agree? Oh, really? Well, let me explain something to you. This is the culture. Your body is just an object for pleasure and gratification. That's all your body is. You want to drink? You have a few beers, get drunk. Who cares? Who cares what your parents think? If you do okay in school, so what? Colleges don't care. That's the culture. This is our Catholic faith. You want to be great? That means sacrifice. See, here's the problem that I see, what we do with you, with your age group. We say things like, you can't do this. You can't drink. You can't have sex. You can't do drugs. You can't. And in your mind, that sounds like a series of restrictions on my freedom, and the church is telling me what I can't do. That's what it sounds like. No. It's about what God's love frees you to do. It's what God love frees you to become. Right? Because when you do, what this is virtue. Virtue. So when the church says your body is a temple of God's Holy Spirit, and you don't give your body away as a gift to someone unless you're willing to make a covenant commitment to them. That's when you give your body to someone, when you do this, not before. Because I will die for my wife. Let me tell you something right now. If my wife got into a car accident and became a quadriplegic, I would contact my bishop, my archbishop, tell him to suspend my faculties. That means I can't function as a deacon temporarily. Why? So I can spend the rest of my life taking care of my wife. Because when I stood at that altar and I put this ring on, I meant every word that came out of my mouth. Living with a guy before you're married, I guarantee you he doesn't care about that. As soon as an accident happens, he will dump you like you're trash. Why? Because you don't have one of these. So get this fantasy out of your mind. Oh, we're just going to live together. We're going to be happy. He's going to take me on his white horse, and we're going to have a big wedding. He ain't thinking about that. I guarantee you. Your body is a temple of God's Holy Spirit. It's a gift that you give to the man who will give his life for you and your children. That's what this is about. That's virtue. That's discipline. Drinking is not bad. But again, we follow the law. Law says 21. And I'll tell you this. I worked as a police chief on a college campus for 11. I was 23 years total in law enforcement. 11 years as a police chief on the college campus. I know what goes on college campuses. And I will tell you that every rape I investigated in 11 years, except for one, involved alcohol or drugs. Either he was drunk, or she was drunk, or they both were drunk. Dozens of cases over the 11 years. But the culture says, oh, just drink, have your college experience. I guarantee you, you don't want the kind of college experience that I investigated. The church is not trying to take away your freedom. The church is saying, if you want to be great, here are the things you need to do because we love you. That's why the church teaches what it does. It's not restricting your freedom. It's actually allowing you to become more free. How many musicians we got here? How many people play instruments? What instrument you play? Flute, okay? So you want to be a great flautist, right? So what if you said, in order to be great, what do you have to do? You have to learn how to read music. You have to practice every day. Are there some days you don't feel like practicing? Yeah, of course. I play guitar. I play guitar in the jazz band. There are a lot of times I didn't feel like playing that day either. Pick up the guitar again. I don't want to do it. But you do it anyway, right? Because of discipline. And you trust your teacher. Do you have a teacher? You mean you don't just go on the internet and get YouTube videos to show you how to do it yourself? You have a teacher, right? Yeah, that's what the church is, our teacher. Right? The church tells you how to hold the flute, how to read music. You have to practice every day because that's why we have to practice and live virtuously. Right? It's just like playing the flute because what happens several years from now? You're not just playing the flute, you're expressing yourself through the music. I remember my brother-in-law was dating an opera singer, and there was an opening for a violin chair in the Portland Symphony. So I went to the tryouts. Anybody ever go to one of those? It's fascinating. So you have these 3 judges, and there's these big blind. They're behind these big blind screens. So they just call a number. Number 1, number 4, number 11. They don't know if they're male, female, black, white. It doesn't matter. The person comes out, and the judges are sitting there, and they don't hear anything except the violin. And everyone plays the same 3 pieces. Now I'm listening. I'm like, wow. These are Juilliard musicians. These are Oberlin. These are some of the best musicians in the world. And I'm listening. I'm like, wow. They're all playing flawlessly. I didn't hear one mistake. How do the judges know which one to pick? I mean, if they're all playing flawlessly, they're all playing the pieces perfectly, how do the judges know which one to pick? How do they know? What else are they listening for? Besides playing the piece accurately, what else are they listening for? Yes! How much of themselves are being expressed through the music? They want to feel something when you play. So it's not just, here's the notes. Dun, 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 dun. They want to feel something when you play. They want to experience you through that piece of music. How do you get there? By practicing, even when you don't want to practice. You sacrifice good things so that you can express yourself through the instrument. Your life, you're an instrument of God. And God wants to do amazing things with you. Look, if someone would have told me, before I left my job, you're going to leave your job and travel around the world talking about Jesus and write books and meet the Pope and all this kind of stuff, I would have laughed in your face. Here I am, doing things I never thought I'd be doing in my life. So, my young friends, the great writer Mark Twain once said the 2 greatest days of your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. I want to challenge each and every one of you, especially you guys going off to high school, the quiet ones over here. I want to really challenge you to allow, as you go off to the next phase of your life, to allow the church, the sacraments to give you the joy so that you can truly discover your why. Right? Amen. Thank you guys very much. So, any questions you want to ask me? I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Yes, please. What was it like deaconing for the Pope? So, how that happened was, during the year of mercy, the Jubilee year of mercy, I was one of 4 deacons invited by the Vatican from the United States to go over to Rome to give a series of talks. And at the end of that experience, I was one of the people deaconing, serving for the Pope. So that's how that happened. And that was pretty cool, I have to say. In fact, they didn't show the Mass on the TV, but they have me meeting the Pope after Mass. That's on my YouTube channel. So I gave him one of my books, and I was talking with the Pope and stuff. So that was pretty cool, but that was after Mass. But it was like I said, it's pretty exciting, and there's like 100,000 people there, and you're like thinking, don't make a mistake, it's pretty exciting. Yes? Yeah, thank you. So I've been a deacon for 21 years, but I've been speaking full-time since 2012. Is when I left my career and started speaking and writing full-time. It was 2012. I was doing some speaking part-time before that, but it was just kind of like a side thing. I never thought to do it as a career. But God called me in adoration in 2011 and said, I need you to do something else. I was like, nope, nope. And he was like, yes. I'm like, no. He's like, yes. And I fought him for 8 months. Tried to talk him out of it, and I couldn't do it. So, but now I look back, best thing I could have ever done. Best thing I could have ever done. Oh, someone wants to say something from this side. Yes. How did I get on Chosen? Okay, that's a good story. So when I left my job, I do what everybody else did. I posted on social media. Guess what? I'm leaving my job to speak and write full time. So I got a call the next week from Matt Pinto. So Matt, at that time, was the president of Ascension Press. He said, Deacon, I saw your post that you left your job. We got this project that we think you'd be great for. It's on confirmation. I said, nope, confirmation programs suck. That's why I'm doing my own program that I made up myself. He goes, I know that. That's why we're doing this. And, we were talking about who we want to be part of it, and your name keeps coming up. We really want you. I said, no, Matt, I'm good. He goes, no, you should really come. I said, okay. So they flew me to Philadelphia. That's the first time I met Chris Stefanik. We were up in the offices, and they had storyboards. Like, it wasn't like they haven't shot it yet, but it's like storyboards of like what the different episodes are going to be. And they had some early video from the Nashville Dominicans. And then Chris was talking about the project. And I'm looking around, I'm listening to Chris, I'm like, oh yeah, sign me up. I'm like, now I get what you're trying to do. And I said, yes, I want to be part of that. And so they sent me to Philadelphia to film at that school, and in New Orleans, and to Rome. We shot those scenes, other scenes in Rome, at the aqueduct and all those different places in Rome. So that was pretty fun. Yes, please. What's the favorite part of this job? Wow. I guess talking to guys like you, talking to high school, middle school. Really, because, we say things like, you're the future of the church. No, you're not. You're the church now. And we need your energy and your passion, your vitality. I think what makes me joyful, right, is knowing that I'm doing what God put me on this earth to do. That's the best part of this job. And for me, I travel a lot, and I speak to lots of different groups. So I speak at conferences and retreats and parish missions and schools and all different kinds of, like keynote addresses at like radio, fundraising, banquets, and all kinds of stuff. I just have so many different things that I do that it makes it very interesting. So it's never boring. And I think of what I do as a musician. Because my father was a professional musician. I was not a professional musician, but I was a pretty good musician back in the day. My wife played in the Oregon Youth Symphony, so music is a big part of my life. So I think of what I do as a musician. So when I write a book, each chapter is a song, the book is an album, and then I go on tour, right? So that's the way I think about what I'm doing. Oh, that's the wind. I was like, what is that? But thank you for the question. Appreciate it very much. Yes. What's that? I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, I'm still in the parish now. So what happens in my archdiocese is when deacons are ordained, you get assigned to a parish, and you sign a ministry agreement with the pastor. Because when I was first ordained, it was like problems, because sometimes the priests and the deacons would have a little tension over like who's doing what, and like, so we fixed that with this agreement. So I was released from my agreement by the Archbishop, because this is my job. This is how I support my family. So and you don't get paid to be at the parish. So I was released from my agreement. So when I'm back in the parish, like the next time I'll be back in my parish is Palm Sunday. So I'll be there the whole week for Holy Week. So I'll just do whatever Father wants me to do. That's basically how it works with me, since I'm traveling so much. That's a great question. Thank you. Yes, please. Oh, yeah, okay. So did I still wrestle at Notre Dame? No, I had an academic scholarship. And actually, to be honest with you, I was not interested in wrestling past high school. But what happened was the district tournament, regional tournament, New Jersey, district tournament, regional tournament, state tournament, okay? So I was breezing through. And in the regional tournament, I was wrestling a guy that I had beat during the year. So I said, before I went out, I said, Coach, what do you want me to do? He says, tech him. So that means that if you have a certain amount of points that you build up, they stop the match, because it's just, right, there's too many points. So I would like take him down, let him up, 2-1. Take him down, get 3 back points, 7-1. or 7'2". Then I let him up. And he knew what was going on. He goes, this guy's trying to tech me. So we were walking back toward the mat, and he shoved me from behind. And I fell awkwardly and blew my shoulder out. So I pinned him because I was mad. But then the problem was during practice during the week, my shoulder kept getting worse. So they sent me for an MRI. And the doctor said, you have one of two choices. You can keep wrestling and probably do enough nerve damage to lose the use of your left arm, or you can stop and have surgery. So what do you think I did? I stopped and had the surgery, and that basically ended my wrestling career. So I never wrestled in the state tournament, and I have a scar here to prove it, the scar that goes all the way down my shoulder here. But the thing, I never planned on wrestling, because Notre Dame doesn't have a wrestling team. So I never planned on wrestling past high school anyway. So I decided to focus on my academics when I was at school. So, and it was a wonderful experience. I have friends that still to this day are some of my closest and dearest friends from Notre Dame. Love those guys. Yeah. Yes. Oh, the teacher. Yes. Yeah, thank you. So I'm from Barbados. Anybody know where Barbados is? I know you probably been there. Where is it? In the Caribbean. Anybody be more specific where in the Caribbean Barbados is? Because the Caribbean is pretty big.
Like in the southeast and the Antilles.
Dude, what? How could you, what? He said it's in the southeast in the Antilles. That's exactly right. Dude, man, I'm impressed. No one ever said that, ever. Ever. In all the places I've been, no one ever said, it's the southeast Indian. It is. It's in a chain of islands called the Lesser Antilles. And it's the biggest island in that chain. We're not too far off the coast of South America. And we're right next to Trinidad and Tobago.
I'm just going to tell you, as the social studies teacher, they sit and practice their geography all the time. So.
Oh, they sit and practice geography all the time. No wonder. That's impressive, man, because no one's ever been that specific before. So that's very good. So when we left Barbados, I was 3, and my brother was 1. In fact, we made page 2 of our national newspaper because my father was a pretty successful singer, songwriter, and nightclub owner. So I still have the clip in my photo album. It's my mom holding my hand and holding my little brother in her arms, and her mom, my grandma's behind us. Sivers family goes to the United States. Because my mom was a nurse, so she trained, because Barbados was a British colony back then, so they went to England to train, came back, and she wanted to get away from my father's lifestyle stuff, so there are a lot of nursing opportunities in Jersey, and there's a lot of Caribbean people in that New York, New Jersey area. So that's where we came to live when we came here. Thank you. Yes, please. Yeah, so she asked, I talked about Mother Teresa laying down her life for the poor. Would I ever do that? Absolutely. Let me tell you one of the greatest experiences I've ever had as a Catholic. So I was on tour in South Africa. So I was in Johannesburg, and I spoke at some of the Randburg Park, Piers Millersburg, Alexandra, different, then I went to Durban, and then Cape Town, and I ended my tour in Soweto. So I'm in Soweto, I'm deaconing at Mass. Mass was 2 hours and 20 minutes long. It started at 8, and it ended at 10:20. It felt like 5 minutes. Amazing, right? So afterward, Father says, we must bring Jesus to the people. I'm like, okay, we're going to go out and preach. No, that's not what he meant. He grabbed a ciborium, and we went into the squatter camps. Now, when you see these places on television, like the cardboard roofs it's much worse in person. The stench nearly knocked me to the ground. There's no plumbing, no electricity, no running water, dirt floors. I mean, I'm like, how could people live like this? And we're walking through. And so what I noticed, all I saw were kids, no adults. So I'm thinking, oh, the adults must be gathered in the place where we're going for Mass or whatever service we're going to do. I was clueless. So we get to the place where we're going. The only adults I see are nuns. This is August in South Africa. Hot, full habit. Like the whole thing, full habit. And I'm like, and nothing but kids. Teenagers down to little kids. I'm like, is this a children's liturgy? I'm confused. I was like, where are the adults? I come to find out that that particular squatter camp is for AIDS orphans. So these are children that have the AIDS virus. And how they got the AIDS virus, because the witch doctors would tell the adults that had AIDS, in order to get rid of the disease, you have to have sex with a virgin. So they would molest their own children, or they would rape other little kids, and thinking that I'm getting rid of the disease, and all they were doing was passing on the disease. And so they would leave these kids, this is what the nuns told me. They would leave these kids in garbage cans. They would drive them out into the middle of nowhere and leave them there and drive back. And so the nuns would gather these kids, and they are the ones that started the squatter camp, the nuns. And I was like, look at this. When everybody else in the culture treated these kids like they were worthless, it's the Catholic Church and the nuns who said, no, these children are children of God. And they started this thing. I was so incredible. Father saw how moved I was. He gave me a carving to remind myself of that visit to the squatter camp. It was the most incredible Catholic experience I ever. It was beautiful. And I said, I'm going to help these nuns. So I've been doing fundraising for the nuns since then to help them keep the camp going. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. So absolutely. Because me going around talking means nothing. I found out roll my sleeves up and get my hands dirty in the work. So great question. Yes, please, my friend. Oh, so just a quick story about my dad. So year 17 of our estrangement. So I haven't talked to my dad for 17 years. You know what EWTN is? Okay, EWTN is like a global Catholic television network. It's on over 123 countries. Okay, so I have 9 television series on that network. My first television series started airing internationally, even in my own country. So someone calls my dad and says, "Isn't that your son on TV?" So my dad flips the channel, and there I am. Now, we're still not talking. 17 years we haven't talked, but he's watching me on this network talk about what it means to be an authentically Catholic man. He catches the last 10 minutes of it. So he said, well, this is interesting. I've never heard my son talk like this before. So he wants to watch the next week, but he got the time wrong. So instead of watching me, he's watching this old nun called Mother Angelica. Okay? So he didn't know how it worked. He said, who's this lady? Where's my son? So remember, he's a musician. He thought she's the opening act. So this lady's going to come out and talk for a few minutes, and then my son is going to come out and do his thing. Well, I never did, because Mother Angelica had her own show. But my father listened the entire hour. Now, you got to remember, my father wasn't baptized, never went to church, but yet he's listening to this old nun for an hour? And I would ask him later, I said, Pop, why did you keep listening? I mean, I didn't come out. You still kept watching. He goes, she just made so much sense. Of all the people to drop that seed of faith in my father's heart, an old nun, that's how it started. And then I ended up meeting my dad a year later. Then he came out to Oregon, met my wife and kids for the first time. But remember, I told the kids he was dead. So how did I get past that? So when he called and said he was going to come and visit, I said, I got a problem. I told the kids he was dead. So I went to my wife, and I said, how do I get out of this? And my wife said, well, Jesus did raise the dead, didn't he? And so I went to my kids, because they were small. I said, guess what, kids? A miracle! So they met my dad and everything. And so we healed, over the next several years, we healed our relationship. And like I said, when he died, I was actually at his bedside praying the Chaplet of Divine Mercy when he died. So good ending, good ending. That's all you got? All right. Hey, well, thank you so much. You guys were very attentive, and you were very respectful, and I appreciate that very much. And please keep me in your prayers. I promise to keep you guys in my prayers as well. Who knows? I get around. I travel a lot. Maybe I'll be back, and maybe I'll get a chance to see, well, you guys will be in high school, but to get a chance to see you guys again. But thank you for taking the time to come and listen to me today, and I hope that at least something I said maybe stuck with you, maybe stuck in your heart, that you'll remember, and more importantly, that you don't just remember, but you actually live the faith and live that joy, right? So again, thank you guys very much. I appreciate it.